It was the second great Windsor wedding of the 1980s. A decade practically defined by royal spectacle and fairy tale romance. 5 years after the world watched Prince Charles marry Lady Diana Spencer, all eyes were on the Queen's second son, the dashing naval officer, Prince Andrew. His bride, a vivacious and down-to-earth redhead named Sarah Ferguson, felt like a breath of fresh air for the monarchy. Their wedding on July 23, 1986, was a masterpiece of pomp and pageantry that seemed to kick off a new, more relaxed chapter for the House of Windsor. It was billed as the ultimate fairy-taler, handsome prince, a spirited commoner, and a royal spectacle that captivated millions. When Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson married on July 23, 1986, in a ceremony watched by an estimated 500 million people, it seemed to promise a happily ever after. But what's the real story behind the day that brought much of the world to a standstill? Let's relive the romance, the fashion, and the unforgettable moments of a wedding that would go down in history. The story of Andrew and Sarah didn't start under the glare of public life, but in the quiet, interconnected world of the British aristocracy. They'd known each other since they were kids, occasionally crossing paths at Polo Machiza World. Their fathers, Prince Philip and Major Ronald Ferguson, both moved in. In fact, Major Ferguson was Prince Charles's polo manager, weaving the two families together long before anyone was thinking about romance. The real spark, though, didn't ignite until 1985, and the matchmaker, none other than Princess Diana. As a close friend of Sarah's, Diana suggested she'd be invited to a dine and sleep party the Queen was hosting at Windsor Castle during Royal Ascot Week. Seated next to each other, the chemistry between the 26-year-old prince and the 26-year-old Fergie was immediate. Andrew was the nation's hero prince, a decorated helicopter pilot fresh from the Falklands War. Sarah, with her fun-loving, outgoing spirit, was instantly charming. The romance that followed was a total whirlwind. On his 26th birthday, February 19, 1986, Andrew proposed at Floors Castle in Scotland. During their official engagement interview, they laughed, telling the story of how Andrew got down on both knees to pop the question. The official announcement came a month later, revealing the stunning engagement ring Prince Andrew had designed himself. He chose a brilliant Burmese ruby, specifically to complement Sarah's fiery red hair, and surrounded it with 10 glittering drop diamonds from the royal jeweler, Garrod. Almost overnight, Britain was swept up in Fergie fever. Sarah's friendly, approachable style was a world away from the more formal members of the royal family, and the public adored her for it. She was a woman who had a job, working in PR and publishing, and that relatability, combined with the obvious affection between the couple, created a tidal wave of excitement for what promised to be the wedding of the year. Wednesday, July 23, 1986, arrived in London with an electric sense of celebration. It wasn't an official national holiday, but you wouldn't know it from the streets. An estimated 100,000 people, a sea of Union Jacks, had lined the procession route, many camping out overnight to get a good spot. The guest list for Westminster Abbey was a who's who of 2,000 people. It included 17 foreign royals, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and First Lady Nancy Reagan, representing the United States. The pews of the ancient abbey, which had been decorated with an incredible 30,000 flowers, also seated celebrities like Elton John and Michael Caine. At Buckingham Palace, Prince Andrew, looking sharp in the ceremonial dress of a naval lieutenant, set off for the abbey. His best man was his youngest brother, a 22-year-old Prince Edward. And together they rode in an open carriage, waving to the roaring crowds. Meanwhile, at Clarence House, the bride was making her final preparations. Then, the moment came. Sarah Ferguson, with her father Major Ronald Ferguson by her side, stepped into the spectacular glass coach, the very same one that had carried Princess Diana 5 years before. As they began their journey, the London sun broke through the clouds. The crowds cheered, catching their first glimpse of the bride. Her face was partially hidden by a veil, but her radiant smile and joyful waves were unmistakable. She arrived at the Abbey a few minutes late, a touch of relatable imperfection on a perfectly planned day, as a nation and an estimated global audience of 500 million held its breath. As Sarah Ferguson walked down the aisle of Westminster Abbey, the world finally got a full look at her wedding dress. A coup designed by the British couturier Linka Siroc, the gown was a masterpiece of 1980s fashion. Crafted from a rich, ivory duchesse satin, it had a scooped neckline, a fitted bodice, and dramatic padded shoulders. But the magic was in the details. The intricate beadwork was deeply personal, weaving in symbols of the couple's story. There were hearts for romance, anchors and waves for Andrew's naval career, and even bumblebees and thistles from Sarah's own family crest. The most sentimental touch was hidden on the magnificent 17-foot train. The couple's initials, A and S, lovingly sewn in silver beads. The 45-minute ceremony was led by the Archbishop of Canterbury, Robert Runcie. Prince Edward served as best man, while Prince Charles gave a reading. The bridal party was a charming group of royal children, including the groom's 4-year-old nephew, Peter Phillips, and his 6-year-old niece, Zara. During the exchange of vows, there was a small, humanizing stumble. Just as Diana had famously mixed up Prince Charles's names, Sarah mistakenly repeated Andrew's middle name, Christian. But in a notable departure from Diana's vows, Sarah chose to include the traditional promise to obey her husband. As they exchanged rings made from traditional Welsh gold, you could hear the cheers from the massive crowds outside. The biggest transformation of the day, however, had been announced that morning. The Queen had bestowed upon her second son the title of Duke of York. This meant that when Sarah walked back down the aisle, she did so as Her Royal Highness the Duchess of York, in a beautiful symbolic gesture. She left the Abbey with her veil now held in place, not by the floral headdress she arrived in, but by a brand new diamond tiara personal gift from the Queen. When the new Duke and Duchess of York emerged from Westminster Abbey into the bright July sunshine, they were met with a deafening roar. They stepped into the 1902 state landau, an open-topped carriage that gave the cheering crowds the perfect view of the happy couple. The ride back to Buckingham Palace was a moment of pure joy. The couple laughed and waved, and the new Duchess, in her typical, exuberant style, gave the crowds an enthusiastic thumbs up. As the procession moved up the Mall, the noise and waving flags were overwhelming. After a wedding breakfast for 120 guests, which featured a towering 5.5-foot tall, rum-soaked marzipan cake crafted by the Navy's own culinary school, the moment everyone was waiting for arrived. The doors to the Buckingham Palace balcony opened, and to a fresh wave of cheers, the Duke and Duchess stepped out. They were joined by the Queen, the Duke of Edinburgh, the Queen Mother, and the group of young attendants. Soon, the crowd of nearly 100,000 began to chant, "We want a kiss." Andrew and Sarah played along, cupping their hands to their ears as if they couldn't hear. Then, they obliged. In a move that was still a fairly new tradition cemented 5 years earlier by Charles and Diana, the couple shared a genuine, passionate kiss. It was a moment that sealed the fairy tale narrative of the day, a symbol of modern romance on the world's most famous stage. After the balcony appearance, the party continued for 300 guests at the Claridge's Hotel. Later that day, as the newlyweds left Buckingham Palace for their honeymoon, their family and friends, including Princess Diana, placed a large teddy bear in their going-away carriage for good fun. The couple boarded a royal jet with "Just Married" painted on the back and flew to the Azores. There, they embarked on a 5-day cruise through the Atlantic aboard the royal yacht Britannia. For a time, the marriage was seen as a huge success. Sarah's fun-loving personality brought a relaxed energy to the monarchy. They welcomed 2 daughters, Princess Beatrice in 1988 and Princess Eugenie in 1990, and seemed to be a happy, modern royal family. But the fairy tale wasn't built to last. The immense pressures of royal life and relentless media scrutiny began to take a toll. A major strain was Andrew's naval career, which kept him away for long stretches. Sarah herself later claimed that in their early years of marriage, they saw each other for only about 40 days a year, and that the marriage began to break down due to these long separations. In March 1992, less than 6 years after their spectacular wedding, the Duke and Duchess of York announced their separation. They officially divorced in 1996. Sarah lost her Royal Highness style, but kept her title, becoming Sarah, Duchess of York. Yet, despite the divorce, their story never turned bitter. Andrew and Sarah have remained incredibly close, a testament to the real friendship that was always at the heart of their romance. They raised their daughters together and continue to support each other, often living under the same roof at Royal Lodge in Windsor. The wedding of 1986 remains a unique moment in royal history. Represented the peak of 80s royal mania day of pure optimism and public affection. And while the happily ever after they hoped for didn't quite pan out, the story of Andrew and Fergie is a powerful look at both the dazzling allure and the impossible pressures of royal life. What's your favorite memory of this iconic royal wedding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And for more deep dives into royal history, don't forget to subscribe. From the personal details hidden on the wedding dress to the joyful chaos of the balcony kiss, the wedding of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson truly captured the spirit of its time. It was a day that promised a new kind of royal story, one that blended ancient duty with a down-earth charm. Though their paths eventually diverged, the memory of that glorious summer wedding remains a fascinating, bittersweet chapter in the story of the House of Windsor.